Hey folks, this is Anirudh. Welcome to my podcast Talk of Thought. In this episode, I got Pooja, who is the CEO of The Glitch and the founder of Seat at the Table. And in this episode, we spoke a lot about entrepreneurship. And if you're anyone who want to start or do something of your own, you should check this episode out. Yeah. So Pooja, the thing is, I always been a person who wants to. I was always curious. Okay, I used to get bored with stuff really quick, and when I wanted to do something with the business role, when I entered the startup ecosystem, what I really wanted to do was look at a person who was doing stuff that I wanted to do. Like the moment they enter in, they kind of change how the business growth happen in that company, and they work with different companies. So when I was trying for find someone who does this, the person I found you was you. The person I found was you, because I was listening to this podcast, Advertisement is Dead, and in that, there was a conversation where they say that you get into the company with a lesser pay cut, and you tell them that in 2 months you can increase the sales or the revenue or the leads, and you probably did it. So my first thing is, how do you do that? Probably you look like super confident. You look like a person who knows the industry. So where does this come from? Like, how do you do? Like, for example, a person like me who want to be someone like you, how can we get to that state?
The only answer I've had, and this is something that I've followed since I was very, very young and I started working, which is to have faith, A, in myself and in my abilities, and second, to take chances, to look at opportunities and go after them. And when I had that discussion with Varun and Rohit right at the start, the point that you're referring to is my
Yeah.
negotiation that I had with Varun and Rohit before I joined Glitch, which is that I was in a very high paying job and I took a pay cut to come to Glitch and say that
Yeah.
let's review it 2 months later, if I'm able to help build the business. It was an opportunity that I saw in front of me and I went after it. And the reason I did that is because I met these guys and I loved what they were doing, and I told myself that I need to be there. And you take a judgment call, you take a gut call, and you believe in yourself, you believe in the fact that you'd really be able to turn this around, and you go after it. What's the worst that will happen? It won't work out, right? That is the
Yeah.
worst that can happen. And then you
Yeah.
can go your separate ways and find another job and move on, right? But if you don't take a chance on yourself, if you
Yeah.
don't knock the door that you get very, very excited about to open,
Hmm.
you would sort of coast through life and wait for things to come to you rather than actually create those opportunities for yourself. So I call myself an opportunity spotter in the
Yeah.
most positive manner. I have been like that since I was very young. I always raised my hand for something I wanted to go after. I have not always been confident, by the way. It's something that I always look confident, but I'm not
Yeah.
always confident. You know what I mean? There's a
Wow.
difference there.
Wow,
And
that's
I've
true.
I've learned along the way how to do that, how to look confident by not actually feeling confident, but
Hmm.
building on it in the middle of the conversation or in the middle of the situation or as that situation/conversation progresses.
Yeah.
Um, and that
So
would really be my advice to everybody.
yeah, and there's an interesting point that you made, right? Like, what the worst could happen. And usually when we are supposed to take this what the worst could happen decisions, that is a point where we are actually very good at some place already. So
Yeah.
weren't you thinking that, once you jump down to a company which was just building, it was like a startup, and there might not be a chance you to go back and you have to rebuild what all you have done or what all the things that you accumulated, like the equity, leverage, everything. So wasn't that any time of fear? Like you have to
Not
start
at
it again.
Not at all, because it's very important for young people to realize, um, and it's important. Every experience is an experience.
Yeah.
Every experience adds to you as a professional, adds to you as a person, and nothing can go ever go waste. So if Glitch had not worked out for me, I would
Hmm.
very much have gone back to another job and made it happen. And um,
Yeah.
uh, is that this is what I tell young people all the time, right? That what's the worst that can happen? And the worst is that they'll say no. And every experience is an experience.
Yeah.
Had this not worked out, had Glitch not worked out, I would have gone back and very confidently sat in front of the future employer and said that I took a punt and that punt didn't work, but I learned so much and I've gained a lot as a professional, and I'm ready to do what I need to do. And that confidence is important. You can't take setbacks in the literal sense as a setback, You look at it as an experience and you move on. And if that's how you look at things you achieve and goals that you set out for yourself but you could not have met, but there was a journey nonetheless, right? And
True.
that journey equates an experience, and that's really what
Yeah.
you should keep in mind.
Yeah. And okay, when you tell that, right, like in the course of time when we are doing pretty well and we can probably add value to some place, I feel that we do get a lot of opportunities. Because like when I was moving, like when I was going with startups and all, I do got like couple of opportunities here and there, and they could ask me if you can come and join. But since time is limited, there is always this thing called how can I validate this idea is good, or I can learn a lot from that. Like there is a gut feeling, like most of the things that come to me, like for example, like there are five or six, most of them are really interesting, like I feel like, oh my god, I should work for all of them. But since the time factor comes in, when you enter a business, like when a glitch does a, like when you go for a client count or when you get a client, what are those things as a tick mark that you do for sure before you enter in some project or you give your commitment?
What are the tick marks
Yeah.
before a commitment? A
Yeah.
large part of it is understanding data, and data not in the literal sense on an Excel sheet, but the information you have in front of you. And then you take a pick. You have to take a judgment call, because nothing is a guarantee, right? No
Yeah.
project, no opportunity, nothing is a guarantee on, hey, that this is going to succeed. So you look at all the variables around you, and then you take that judgment call, and you bet on yourself, and you bet on the judgment the decision you've taken, and hold yourself responsible if it doesn't work out.
True. Yeah. And
So
most
that
of the,
to be honest, Anil, it's not this. There is no crazy science to this, and
yeah.
there is nothing complicated about decision making, because we have intellectualized this so much that every time it comes to an opportunity or something that we have to go after,
Yeah.
we sit and break things down to the minutest level and see, hey, where could this possibly go? But that's not how life works, right? Life just happens, and you take
Mhm.
some decisions, don't take some, and you still move on. And to
Yeah.
me, it's really that simple, that I
Yeah.
take a judgment call, I take a gut call, and I move forward. Some have not worked out, and I've been okay with it. As I said, it's been an experience, and I moved forward.
True. And even like when I was working also, right? Like there were some companies, like initially when you start out, you say yes to everything because you need more clients and you're like, okay, fine, we can figure it out later. And then the moment the project started getting more and more, and the moment the delivery dates, or and the thing with creatives is like, for example, even though you want to go social, you want to run a campaign, the thing that happens with creative is, I don't know how it works, but you should tell me, like when we put a structure, when we put like a timeline, is there a chance you can keep the creativity just flows on and on? Because I feel structure and creativity, how can they coexist together? I have
So
this doubt.
point on decision making, on so there are two things, right? Your question, the question that you asked me first, which was decision making in life, and
Yeah.
how do you pick big life decisions?
Yeah.
And for that, it's a gut call, right? And you move forward.
Yeah.
But when it's projects for your company, then
Yeah.
there are many factors you need to look at. A, the viability of the client. Second, the people you're working with across, on the other side of the table. It's very important to work with people who respect what you bring to the table and not treat you like vendors. So it's very important to understand that.
Yeah.
Third part, it is a business, right? And while creativity is an art, at the end of it, it is a business, and you have to deliver on certain timelines within a certain cost. And you need to take that call. That,
Mm.
while at the start, we took a lot of decisions at the start of Glitch where we didn't go after 500 clients. We did not. We took that call. We said that, if our peers are growing at 400, 500% in their early years,
Mm.
but taking on so many clients, so many small clients, and then not being able to deliver on it, or deliver creatives which didn't make them feel happy about the end result, at the end of the day, it was not worth it. And
Yeah.
what we did, even at the start of Glitch, is be very, very picky about the brands we want to work with. Of course, there were a few that we did take on to pay the bills, but
Mm.
that part, but those clients were a very, very small amount. A large part of the businesses we took on is because we were excited about the potential work we could do on it. And if we got into that project and we were not excited anymore, we had those conversations with our client, because at the end of the day, if we have to deliver something and I don't have a motivated team to deliver that business, I'm never going to be able to do a good job, right? So we've also had many tough conversations with our clients saying that, I don't think we'll be able to do this anymore for X, Y, and Z reason. And that's that way of working has really been something that's driven us at Glitch.
Yeah. And when we work with an agency, like, the way agencies work, and the best part about being a part of an agency is that, you have to innovate. You have the everyday problems would be new. Like instead, like in a company, like there is a product, there to go through an innovation, there is an R&D and everything goes on. But with a media company or an agency is that, you're a part of many other brands. You're a partner to other brands too. And you have to
Yeah.
keep on innovating and you have to partner up with them, understand their brand identity. And what question that comes to me often is that coming to digital, like since there is a lot of competition, like for example, Glitch has made its space right now. Like it the way it delivers, it has made its space. And what about the other companies? Like for example, like right now I have my own media company, and most of the things we get is from referrals. And when the whole market is saturated, what can a person or what can a company do to stand out?
That's a good question. And especially in this industry, yes, it does seem like it is very saturated and there
Yeah.
are agencies all around us, but there are also lots and lots and lots of brands that are born every day, right? So it is the growth
Yeah.
is happening on both sides. And if every agency is going to go after just one kind of business, then yes, we're going to have a problem. And
Yeah.
that problem does exist, right? Because a lot of the agencies want to go after the top 50 or the top 100 clients, and so do we. That's what we go after.
Yeah.
But we create a very clear niche for ourselves from the very beginning, which is why do we exist? And
Hmm.
that also delivers today on our elevator pitch for Glitch, which is that we're inclusive, we're gender blind, we're progressive, and we're a high performance workspace. For us, it was very important that the work we deliver from the very beginning had a positive impact on society. So we
Yeah.
never took on projects that were cosmetizing. We
Okay.
never took on projects that where we couldn't have a long-term impact on brands and partner with them to have long-term impact with their customers, especially in society. So the
Yeah.
examples that I'm talking about is, being gender inclusive, or how do we portray gender roles, or how do we, for example, portray the LGBTQI community. It was very, very important to us from the very beginning that that was going to be our no-goes. And I do
Okay.
feel that that very clear distinction helped
Hmm.
us get important seats at the table, because we had very, very young people from extremely diverse backgrounds having different conversations with clients, pushing them to think differently, pushing them to push their own boundaries,
Yeah.
and and that helped us. It was that clarity about why we exist as an organization that helped us move forward. And a lot of agencies and a lot of companies, not just agencies, right?
Hmm.
Companies have been able to have the unique USP. And which is why, we're at the end of the day, we're marketing people. And if
Yeah.
we can't position ourselves in a way that makes us distinctive, then what is the grand idea? How are we going to build large long-term relationships, right? And which is
True.
why if you look at our clients today, we handle global businesses,
Yeah.
and a large part of them are businesses that have worked with us. We have partnered with them for years, and we are just 11 years old. So if I'm saying years, I mean for a long, long time, right? More than
Yeah.
60 of our existence has been
Yeah.
with our top 10 clients, and that is the story in itself. And you don't realize that 2-3 years into your existence as an organization.
Yeah.
But if you're clear about this vision,
Hmm.
and that's what happened to us in our ninth and 10th year, we looked back and we looked at what was the composition of our talent pool. We were 50-50, one of the
Hmm.
only agencies in the industry that has 50-50 male female ratio. We had the highest number of women in our leadership team. We have more than two genders in our leadership team. People from the our talent from our LGBTQI community are open and out there and feel extremely safe. Those pieces were
Oh.
very important to us. And and remember, when you have a diverse, motivated pool that knows that they have equal opportunity at every level, that
Hmm.
is your superpower.
Yeah.
Till now, I have not spoken about the quality of creative, if you recognize.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
only spoken about the people and the culture. And that part is very important. When you're building out an organization, there is
Hmm.
a service you provide. But remember, that service changes, that service evolves as the industry evolves, as the world evolves. What we were doing 10 years ago, we're no longer doing that work anymore. We have
True.
grown from being, doing X kind of work into being hardcore marketing consultants and partners for our business, for the clients we handle. There's been
Yeah.
a huge growth, but our purpose as an agency stays exactly the same. And which
Wow.
is why your people and culture is so important. And note, it's not like we've not made our share of mistakes. Of course we have. But as an organization, we're very clear about, we understand the mistakes we've made, and we try and change that. We try. It's very important for us to have
Hmm.
a very, very motivated talent pool.
Yeah.
And
And
that's what we focus on.
yeah, and the thing is, interesting thing is the purpose and culture you have told, right? And I wanted to know initial days when an organization starts, like when it how to make sure that the passion that all the top, like the founding team has, the same the culture, same purpose and passion everyone in the whole organization can hold, because they like,
Well,
and and also the question is that I always see that how can we hold a person for a bigger identity, because a moment some other company offers them a higher paycheck, like not to just run away, but to make them stick to the organization, make them believe in the value system. I want to know how can this be done
yeah.
for
So
startups.
I'm going to talk to you about my learning. All right.
Yeah, sure.
It is going to be impossible for you to have 100% motivated talent pool. It's going to be impossible. Okay.
True.
It's not going to happen. I don't know if other companies have been able to do it. I know I have not been able to do it. Okay. So I'm speaking from my experience. 100% motivated talent pool does not happen. You have to aim for maximum.
Hmm.
The maximum number of people in your organization aligned to the values of your company, aligned to the goals of the organization.
Yeah.
Have you ensured as a leader that everybody, this goes to maximum, that everybody in your company feels included? That do they feel they have equal opportunity? Do they feel that this is an inclusive and safe environment? That goes to everybody. But can we motivate and keep everyone happy? No, it does not happen. I have not been able to do that. And it breaks my heart till today when I have someone who leaves, when I have some, it impacts me even today. And we're 500 people. And even then, it still impacts me. But the thing is, that's how life is. You try and hold on to your values,
Yeah.
to the vision of the organization, and try and keep the largest pool motivated, right?
Okay.
Reward the high performers. That's very important. You reward the high performers. Most of them will see that reward and believe that the company is investing in them and invest back in the company, right? But
Okay.
some of them don't see that, and that's all right, because that is life, right? Because their goals possibly don't align to yours and they want to move on, and that is all right. But they played a part in your organization,
Yeah.
right? And you always respect that time. You respect the time they put into you and you put into them, and you learn to move on. So focus on maximum.
Yeah.
um,
Got it.
know that this is the circle of life. Exit's a circle of life.
Yeah.
Exit should not, however, you have to look at your trends, right? That are the large number of people leaving because you are not doing something right as an organization. That has happened to us at some phase in our when it came to work, or when it came to whatever, right? There were people, certain senior people that were probably not working out or not treating younger teams. That happens in the journey of your organization, but you learn. It's
Yeah.
important to keep looking at and taking the feedback everyone gives you when they leave, and which is why exit interviews are very important.
Yeah.
It's very important to understand why someone is leaving. And when someone is leaving, right, at the exit interview time, they don't really have anything to hold back. They're leaving, right? It doesn't matter.
True.
That's the
Yeah.
time they will give most honest feedback. And those interviews are so important for me to understand. I look at that data till today. The why, when people leave, why do they leave? And when I look at it and I see that, okay, what part of it can I actually control? I can't, say for example, I can't control the amount of increments we give, right? It's a factor of many things, our industry, our business performance of the year, a pandemic,
Yeah.
economy, all those things, right? But can I control, uh, safety? Can I control culture? Can I control how opportunities? I can control those things. Can I control, the quality of work? I can. And those are the factors I look at. Not just I, but everybody in our leadership team looks at. And those are
True.
factors to consider.
Yeah, and the thing is that's important, right? Because I understood, like I knew the point of having communication with every employee and making them understand what the brand believes helps you. But the thing that you told me, giving rewards to the one who actually deserves will actually make them feel that my work is being noticed, and that's
Yes.
like a very very important that we neglected, as in like the startup that I worked in, like we neglected at one point. We took it for granted that they did their job. Why to
Yeah.
reward it? But later we realized no, that extra input will give them work more, the motivation would be more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to ask you right now about the seat at the table. Like, what was that initiative and what is it about?
Sure. So I, I've been working and say investing in startups or mentoring startups for some time now. Whenever I have the time, it's
Yeah.
not something that um, it's been something that we've been doing for years. Last year, in the pandemic, it was one of my biggest creative releases, where I would take time over the weekend and try and work with at least two startups every weekend. So over the
Yeah.
year, I worked with many, close to 70 of them at different levels, where I was, some I was just advising for, like, hey, they reached out to me and I would just get on a call and have a conversation with them. Some I was investing in, some I was consulting with. There was a lot that was going on. And I realized that so many, and while that was happening, I also got to know the founders. I understood the challenges that they were facing. And I recognized that only certain kind of if you look, and this is data is out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you look at the entrepreneurial landscape of our country, the largest number of invested organizations are led by male-led
Yeah.
founders from a certain background. There are only 10-11% of our companies that have at least one female founder that actually get funded. The amount of funding that comes to women, people from the LGBTQI community, people from religious minorities is really, really low. And this is data. The data is out there.
Yeah.
And for me, that was important. What I decided to then do, seat at the table is actually a lens. It's a lens through which I apply purpose to where I spend my personal time and capital. It's as simple as that. And what I want to do is play a small role in really reshaping the entrepreneurial landscape of our country. And if my investments and my connections and my advice can help push organizations with great ideas and great potential move forward, because I don't look at them with a lens of bias or unconscious bias, right?
Yeah.
That's what my focus is. And this initiative is evolving.
Yeah.
It's something that I do in my own time, and
Yeah.
it's me. It's just me. And I've put a certain pool aside of investment,
Yeah.
and I work with my connections, and I work with a lot of my friends in the industry who are investors themselves, and try and create a VC environment which looks at companies very, very consciously without any bias.
Yeah.
And that's really the objective.
Yeah. So when I work with like startups, right? Like one thing that I observed was most of the startups, like correct me if I'm wrong, like most of the startups jump to have funding very early. Like it is good when they're initiative, but I always had this thing called the moment you go and like there's a percentage given off, you lose a stake of control. Like there is
Yeah.
someone else also coming in the business right now, and you are answerable to them. There's a discussion, of course, there is always this answering going on. So when is the
Yeah.
right time actually to get a funding? Like when is the right time to go for funding?
So that question is really depends on the financial, stabilities of the founders, right? I mean, if they have a pool that they can invest in a great idea they have, that's fantastic. But
Yeah.
there are so often there are young people with great ideas who don't have that backing, who don't have that financial support either from home or have not been able to build up a corpus to be able to invest in their idea. And that happens too. So, I mean, the best piece for any entrepreneur would be to try and find their own, some amount of money on their own, or take a business loan and be able to get to certain level of revenue in their
Yeah.
organization before they give out stake.
Yeah.
Because then the value of the valuation of your company goes higher, right? That
Yeah.
is
True.
that is obviously the best thing to do. But if you can't do it and you don't have the ability to do it, but you're sitting on a great idea,
Yeah.
you go and find funding. You don't
True.
wait.
True. And when we try to, like, you've been working, you told, right, you've been working with a lot of startups and all. What were those interesting ideas, or what were those things that really those founders had really impressed you?
The biggest thing for me is how almost every founder I spoke to was building an organization on some kind of purpose in the world. They either wanted to help the environment, so there were projects on energy, there were projects on agriculture, which I
Wow.
found so impressive. The second part was even companies that were building fashion and beauty businesses were talking about sustainability, we're talking about clean beauty, we're talking about recyclable fabrics. I loved the fact that this new, and this has been happening for a little bit now, it's not something that's just my observation, but something
Yeah.
I've noticed the last few years, that
Hmm.
so many companies today and so many entrepreneurs today, it's not just about capitalism, which is good, which is important to move the economy forward, which is very important, but they also apply a very, very strong sense of purpose from the very beginning.
Hmm.
And I think that's very inspirational. I love that.
Yeah. And when this purpose we find out, right? Like whenever the purpose is huge, when they want to do really huge, and what else do you also cater in? Like probably like a team, or will that actually work here? Like, will it take time, or is it even like a rational idea to pitch in right now? Like, is there like this places where you found it? Like after you heard an idea, you would give them that this is not a really good space to carry on. Did it
Yeah,
ever happen?
there have been a couple of presentations that I went through, which I looked at and said they're probably a bit too early for or I don't think this is a viable business. But
Yeah.
I also think that, from my own personal experience, I have been told so many times that this is not a great idea or this is not a viable business opportunity, but I believed in it and so often made it happen. So, which is why my input to them is that this is my observation, this is what I
Yeah.
feel from my experience. But before you actually invest a lot in it, you must make sure that you do
Hmm.
enough of an enough of a check to make sure that this is viable right now. And so that's how my advice really works. I talk to them from my experience, from the data that I have in front of me, and my
Hmm.
experience in the last 22 years.
Yeah.
As I said, I have had so many times in my life where someone said it's not worked out and I've actually made it happen. So
Yeah. Until like all the experiences we combined, like for example, you work at Femina, you also work at Unilever, and like you started working when you were 16, right? Like
15, yes.
yeah, 15. Oh my God! Like from that early age when you're working and when you get all the practical experience on board. So is this also adds a lot of value? Just the reason that you're sure that your entry to a company can add a lot of value. Like
Absolutely, absolutely. I am actually a person that believes in life education rather than document education. For
great,
me, that's
same here.
experiences are very, very important. So I actually never went to college. I did my entire education on work credits. My
Oh really?
entire grad. Yeah, I've never sat in a college. I've never sat in a college classroom after class 10. I've never sat in a classroom after class 10.
Wow.
Um,
Good decision,
so
honestly.
yeah, that's how I worked. I did it through correspondence. I did it through work credit because for me it was very important. I wanted to start working right after class 10. So my mother was very,
Hmm.
like any parent would be, was extremely upset with me and was very. But at the end of the day, I knew what I wanted and I wanted to go after it, and I pursued it. It's a good thing that it worked out.
Hmm. Yeah, true.
But I was very clear that that's what I want to do,
And
and
I
I would
feel,
honestly encourage my daughter to do the same. That the head start that I got
yeah,
because I was working since I was so young. I was way, way, way ahead of my peers. Uh,
true.
Way ahead because
Yeah.
at 18 I was living on rent on my own in
Wow.
Bombay, had my own car, had my all, and I was working in Unilever.
Wow.
So it definitely helped.
And when you do that, right, like with passion, you also have to bring in the work. You have to bring in the deliverables. So how did you even learn? Like, one of the best thing that I learned, like when I was in this ecosystem, was with passion, you should also understand how to pitch in. Yeah, and then you should understand how to pitch into your client. You should pitch into your employees and everything. And what are your, like, the moment you see a presentation, what are those little tiny things that you look at first before you reject something? Like there would be few don'ts, right? Red flags that you get. And what were those all like? Let me frame my question properly. Like when you pitch some client, when you try to hunt someone, what are those secret tips or tricks that you probably follow with your experience that you can close the deal? You're confident enough that your addition will add value.
I think so. Your question is from the perspective of me as an advertising
Agency,
executive.
yeah, advertise, yeah,
I am pitching to a client.
yeah,
What are the things that I would I keep in mind for
yeah,
myself, my team, my colleagues when we're pitching?
yeah,
Right, that's your
yeah,
question.
true,
So, number one, it needs to be a completely diverse team that's pitching to the client. All right.
yeah,
Two, you need to be in complete sync with your colleagues.
yeah,
Complete sync, right? We need to know before we go into the meeting who says what. Fourth, your elevator pitch needs to be bang on, and our elevator pitch is always the same.
yeah,
Passion and energy in the room when it was a physical meeting or even when it is a Zoom meeting is
yeah,
very, very important. So it's very high octane. Our meetings are high octane. They're high energy. There's body, there's movement. There's conversation. Those pieces are very important. Education. Be completely educated about the client you're going to meet, the category that they operate in. You need to have knowledge that surprises them. You need to have information that can make you have an enriching conversation with the client. So
yeah,
if you're talking to a client in the beauty industry, you need to understand that industry and you have an expert in your team making sure that that conversation can happen. These kind of factors are very important. At the end of the day, we're sales. We sell something. We're selling an
yeah.
idea. We're selling culture. We're selling the concept of a certain team. It's very important that it's packaged to perfection when you go in front of a client.
Yeah. And when we say a diverse team also, right? Like for a client, for a company itself, it frames a culture. Like, we understand ourselves what the company is about. There is a form of connection that we get along to. But when we actually picture taking for a client, will it really matter that, is there is a diverse team or not? Because for them at the end of the day, it's a deliverables, right? That I have seen.
It matters a lot. A lot. I have seen there are obviously going to be exceptions to this, all
Yeah.
right, where someone just doesn't care and
Yeah.
but 98% of the times
Yeah.
that has been one of our biggest call outs from a client, that I love the fact that you're diverse and I love the fact that you're inclusive, and they feel confident that we will bring in a
Yeah.
very broad perspective from an idea and creative standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, because we are such a diverse group, right? That
Yeah.
is very important. And as I said, it's 98% of the time that has worked in our favor.
Yeah. And even though when you say like, having an elevator pitch that's super bang on, and when we try to do all this say like, probably pitch into a client, doing the sales call and all, there is a major aspect of, how to, what will be the end of the day, the result. And we have to bring in that result. And was there any time when the promised result wasn't delivered as expected and still the client is with you for a longer term?
Oh yeah, so many times. I mean, we've not like hit it out of the park in every meeting. That has not happened. But yes, there
Yeah.
have been cases where where we've been very very unhappy with what we delivered, and but it worked out, and and we won the project or we won the client. But there have also been times where we were really bad in the meeting, and and the result was like we didn't win it, and we were and there have also been times where we were really really good and we were extremely confident and we still didn't win it.
Oh my God.
So this
Yeah.
is part of business. This is part of life, and you
Yeah.
learn every process, every project, every presentation is a learning experience,
Yeah.
and you break down that meeting and you break down the result with the team and you learn from it and you move forward.
Yeah. And there's this question that always, bothered me when I work with startups or something. Like when it comes to campaigns, when it comes to social spaces, right? Often what happens is what our brand identity is, the purpose. Because when I was building up, I always had this consciousness in my mind that whatever the creatives we make, every deliverable we do should have the vision and mission that a founder has taken in his head, and we want to give that. And oftentimes, when we want to make a sale, when we want to write a copy that sells something, that always contradicts with that. And eventually brands also evolve. So did Glitch ever evolved in such a way that initially the idea which it got started and what it is right now has completely changed?
You mean from an organization standpoint?
Yeah, organization standpoint.
I mean, from a very obviously there's been evolution. So
Yeah.
that is an immediate yes, right? There
Yeah.
has been evolution for sure.
Yeah.
But has it been that we wanted to do something and it eventually became something else? Yes, there have been
Yeah.
great surprises. On a say for example a service we launched and we didn't think that
Yeah.
that's going to be one of our key services, but it ends up being one of our biggest services. So that does happen. But yeah, I mean, evolution and good and bad surprises are part of growth.
Yeah.
So that is bound to happen.
Uh, and when a person joins, like for example, Glitch, or the way, like the top agencies or the place where it's all super creative, like all the way from looking at the website to looking at the way you people talk, there always comes with something called, I have to give something that's not expected. Like I always
Yeah.
have this in it, because when I did a podcast with Rohit, he also told me that one of the thing that they remember for sure in Glitch is, what can we tell to the client, what can we deliver that the opposite person did not expect. And how do you maintain that standpoint? Like, because I feel that whenever I work, the place I'm coming is, as an agency, when I pitch to a client, the client has done their research, they know what is there, here and there and all those things. And the moment I go in, what can be that, like how can, as a big agency like a Glitch, will see that that they can add something that the client didn't think by themselves. How can we stand out in that way and not pressurize the employees too? Like, because you have to be really creative, you have to be out of the box, and that also take a lot of energy. How do you maintain that?
Um, I mean, it's again that's a factor of the kind of talent you have, and it really is a factor of the talent you have, and understanding the business and the motivation of that talent, and
Yeah.
so it's really it only comes down to your talent pool, to
Mm.
being very clear about your creative mission and what do you want to deliver as an organization. Yeah, simple
Mm.
answer is a motivated talent pool.
Mm. Yeah, that
That's
actually makes kind of sense. Because
isn't it?
what I also, like, I was always trying to overthink in this perspective that how can I make sure this happens every time? And the end of the day, the answer was simple, that you need to have those people who are interested in the project. Since they are
Yeah,
interested, they know insights already and they can add in the value.
yeah,
Because for one of the company I was working on, like the pitch was like, we will start a podcast for you. And we were getting paid for that, like doing podcasts for them. We never thought of something like this would exist. So
Yeah.
it was it was just that we made it in that way. So I want to end this by asking you this thing. Like I was always, of course, I'm curious what is also that how to, like, whenever you're trying to start out, when a person want to do freelance or startup, I feel they're closely related to each other. And when they are trying to approach people, there is cold emailing. There's a lot of things going on. How to find the right person, like to know mentors, or go to an accelerator or incubation center. How to decide on them? How to, like, follow them, like as a mentor itself? Because we were being a part of few groups that after we joined, we realized that of course they have a good branding, and it was great. But the moment we joined, we felt that it wasn't the right place. So how as a startup we can do that? Like a
I'm again, that is really a combination of the kind of mentor you want to go after, that you want, on as part of your advisory board, their experience, and eventually a gut call. It's a combination of all of that, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
hmm,
So it is really being, also as a company, if you're very clear about what you want,
hmm,
then you go after a mentor who can provide that for you. I'll give you an example. Say, for example, you're very clear about the service of your organization, the service that your organization provides, but you just don't know how to scale a company, and your business operations are very unique. Then you find a person who can help you with that, right?
yeah,
Because if you need support in business operations and scaling of an organization, and if you go after a person who's only extremely creative but actually can't help you with scale, business operations and
yeah,
P&L management, it's going to be a waste of both your time, right? So
okay,
you have to be very clear about what you want
hmm,
and why you want that person, and which is when this person will make sense. Because it's very nice to have the biggest guys as mentors, but most often they are not the people you potentially need for your business, because you are possibly very clear about what your company is doing and what it needs to do, but really you
yeah,
need support for the basic, most logistical stuff which they can't
true,
provide,
yeah,
and
true,
that's when these kind of associations sort of don't go anywhere.
yeah,
And
true,
which is on my seat at the table, when people come to me for advice, I very clearly ask them to articulate what do they need.
hmm,
And if I can't provide that need, I say, there is, the relationship won't work, or I won't be able to add meaningful value to your company. I'll be happy to be part of your advisory board, but actually what you need is
hmm,
someone who can provide, say, for example, X, not Y to you.
yeah, got it. That's all. Thanks for doing this, because it was
Yeah,
like I got a lot of insights.
awesome.
Thank
Really happy.
thanks a
Thanks
lot.
so much. All the very best with everything you do.